Ultimately, it does not matter that Rob doesn't know anything about torsion, or that he couldn't find a second act to save his soul. These facts have not hurt this world or Rob Liefeld one bit. What matters is that every day, at every turn, Rob Liefeld goes out of his way to be a cruel, petty, self-aggrandizing nightmare. He treats his collaborators with contempt, his fans with derision, his whole industry with scorn. At the slightest provocation, Rob is seemingly prepared to ruin his entire career. Mocking his love of pouches or shoulder pads would only lessen the questions we're all left with. 1. Rob Liefeld is a marketing genius, whose name alone will sell any book he's on. So why can't he give himself away? 2. Rob Liefeld has squandered talent, friendship, and goodwill at every opportunity, so why does he still have a fan base? He's a selfish, wounded friend to no one. A vindictive child fired from or bankrupted every publisher he's been a part of for 30 years. Every last one. Deadpool creator Rob Liefeld will no longer work with Marvel after Deadpool and Wolverine premiere indignities. So Rob Liefeld is, he's whining. He's doing some victim shit, which he likes to do sometimes when he's not claiming victor. Sounds familiar, right? Sounds like some people that we've covered a lot. He describes several perceived slights, such as being denied access to the after party, and makes a head-turning claim. Kevin Feige does not treat comic book creators well. Rob Liefeld is done with Marvel. The comic artist and creator says that after more than 30 years, he is severing ties with the publisher for whom he created renowned characters, Deadpool and Cable. That needs to say co-created. Liefeld laid out his decision in a 90-minute episode of Rob Servation's podcast, as well as a follow-up interview in The Hollywood Reporter, where he detailed a series of perceived slights at July's New York premiere. Dude, thank you, man. Thank you for still using Wolverine. At the premiere, Liefeld learned he and his family were not invited to the after party, something he was accustomed to attending. Entitlement. He also felt snubbed by Disney brass, including Marvel Studios' Kevin Feige, whom he says was near him on the red carpet, but did not acknowledge him. It was meant to embarrass, diminish, and defeat me, Liefeld said on his podcast of not gaining access to the after party. I don't know that much thought went into it, man. I think it was more just like, as we're going to find out, if you're a dick and you say dickish things publicly enough, often enough, much like Ethan Van Sciver, eventually people don't want to fucking hang out with you anymore, man. And that includes working relationships. That includes, how entitled do you have to feel? How entitled do you have to feel to fucking be a goddamn asshole to people, to publicly shit on an entire line of creators, which we will get into. He's done a few times, by shitting on people who are working in the comics industry right now. And then, and then shit on the MCU and shit on the future of Deadpool in the MCU, which he did. We're going to look at all this. Then expect them to be like, hey, yeah, here, red carpet. Get this baby butt off my screen. What the fuck is happening, man? Anyway, like, how often, how fucking entitled do you have to be? Right? It's almost like the same thing as just continuously telling people to kill themselves and calling, saying racist shit on Facebook and stuff like that when you're a working artist for DC Comics, and then feeling like, oh, they didn't hire me, they didn't renew my contract, but I was entitled to it no matter what I did. I thought that the rules were, I can say and do whatever the fuck I want because I'm such a special fucking guy. And now it turns out that's not the case. They're not treating me like the fucking special guy I am. And that's fucked up. I am a special guy. My name is Ethan Van Sciver. My name is Rob Liefeld. I'm a fucking special guy. I'm so special, and they worship me. They're supposed to worship me and fucking love me forever, no matter what I do and say. What's going on here? So there was another apparent slight. He said he posed for professional photos with creatives on the Deadpool and Wolverine team, but later was told by his publicist that these photos were deleted. He believes they were only taken as a courtesy and not intended to be used, though other photos featuring Liefeld alone, as well as with his family, appeared as part of Disney's Getty press portal from the event. Come on, man. You're Jesus Christ, dude. Like,
okay, you the big bad booty daddy.
You know?
Some motherfuckers are always trying to ice skate uphill.
Estás loco.
It's fucking full on baby mode. Full on fucking baby shit, dude. It's fucking baby ass. All right. Soon after July's premiere, he decided he would cut ties with Marvel, which he believed no longer wanted him around. At some point, you go, I've received the message, and the message is clear. Well, good, man. It took you long enough. They would use him for a fucking... Every once in a while, they would let him do a fucking, variant cover. And then every fucking rare once in a while, they gave him like a mini series to do Major X or whatever. You know, didn't even let him work on Deadpool. So once again, this is from October 2019, comicbookherald.com, which is honestly, let's just look at real quick how indispensable of a resource this is if you're looking for where to get into comics, or you're just, you're already into comics and you just want to know, hey man, what the fuck is the reading order? For anything, right? Like if you want to talk about Jonathan Hickman X-Men reading order, it's right there. Complete Marvel reading order guide. The complete guide. So this is what I think of when people are like, it's so hard to get. No, it's not. Go right here. It's right here. They've got a 1961 to 2000 Essential 25 Collections fast track, then 2012 to 2012 fast track, the best 100 Marvel stories from 98 to 2015, Marvel Cosmic Comics from 1963 to present. Then they've even got the Star Wars reading order in there just for the hell of it. Then you can go to the Ultimate Universe, the Ultimate Universe 2, which is the current one we're in. And then this is like essentially, the 2000s and beyond, right? Like everything up until Avengers Disassembled, when things started getting really intertwined. Yeah, League of Comics Geeks also has a good user-created reading order. That's true. You can tell a Liefeld drawing from across the room. Wild costumes, exaggerated proportions, dynamic poses. Then there's his writing, which feels like a Michael Bay movie powered by irradiated cocaine. Technique. For the most of his career, Rob Liefeld had no real formal training in anything. Not in drawing, not in writing, not in anything. As a result, there are some real fundamental mistakes. Not problems, mistakes with much of his output. Spectacular marketing. Rob Liefeld can absolutely sell a book. In fact, Rob is one of the few people who consistently sell multiple versions of his books. So being able to sell multiple versions of his books, honestly, I would not be surprised if he gets at least offered to join a Rippaverse. So starting at DC Comics, from the very beginning, Rob Liefeld was a standout talent. As you'd expect, editors showed reservations over Rob's fundamentals. Gary Carlson, the editor at Megaton Comics, referred to it charitably as some goofy anatomy. Liefeld's character designs had just enough George Perez in it to feel comfortable, and his sequencing was clear enough to convey a story. That's true. Unfortunately, much of Liefeld's early work was never published or was redrawn by other artists by editorial edict. I want to pause here and wonder what this output looked like. Did it benefit from Liefeld being younger, eager, and more open to guidance, or did it suffer from inexperience and a lack of practical knowledge? We can see hints of answers in the Hawk and Dove miniseries that did get published. And credit where credit's due, his idea to represent an alternate dimension by turning the comic on its side was a good idea. It was a good solution for how to challenge the reader without all the hard work that a Ditko, Steranko, or Kirby execution would require. So here is, honestly, one of the best Rob Liefeld drawings. That's actually pretty good. But you could see that he had not started to incorporate a lot of the things that become identifiable as Liefeldian yet. Regardless, I contend that this moment here represents the height of Rob's technical skill, as shown by the comparison above. Yeah, let's look at the comparison, actually. So there's this one. 80s. And then here's the 2000s. When you see the Liefeldian proportions on full display, you see almost all of the problems of Liefeld. As I like to say, I'm gonna get a quick clip here for a drop, so you guys get an idea of who I'm talking about, in case you younger folks aren't familiar. So You'll never be able to unsee this, by the way, if you haven't already seen it. If I haven't already shown you this, you will always see Rob Liefeld's mouths this way.
Let me show you something. 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 Let's show you something. Let's show you something. Let me show you something.
Okay. Yes, his right hand is a square. That's true.
Let me show you something. Let me show you something.
All right. Now you'll never unsee it. Thank you. Thank you. It's okay. So it's his height of technical skill, according to this writer, and I would agree. Having not read the book, I would agree. Let's see. His characters are better proportioned. Their posing and locomotion feel much more naturalistic. Even his panels are less crowded. Like, legitimately, man. Like, there's nothing really wrong with this. I mean, yeah, it's maybe a little bit raw, but I would not complain about this art at all. You know, if I bought a comic with this, I would not think that that's a shitty cover. This one, on the other hand,
Show you something. Show you something.
technically, the seeds for X-Force begin with Rob's takeover of the New Mutants in 1989. Rob would initially be partnered with the staggeringly brilliant Louise Simonson on that run. All of the people that Rob Liefeld's rock star status allowed him to mow the fuck over. Talented people, legends in the field, who just have more talent in their feet than he does in his whole body. And he fucking mowed them over, you know, and of course this is editorial's responsibility as well. I mean, they're primarily responsible because they're the ones that decided, because he sells more books, we're just gonna fucking kick this person out of, you know, their position or whatever, or we're gonna sideline them rather. So at the time, Louise Simonson was working on New Mutants, creator of Apocalypse. Damn right. So with Fabian Nicieza on scripts, the whole run lasted from New Mutants 86 to 100. And while this is an important period for Marvel, the X-Book line and New Mutants itself, let's fast forward to X-Force number 1. X-Force number 1 was an absolute bombshell and one that catapulted Rob into the forefront of comics discussion. Part of this was due to Rob's marketing genius. He saw the wave of speculators coming into the comic market, looking for the next big thing to collect for quick cash. And he made the most of it by writing their thirst for first issues. Each issue of X-Force number 1 was packed with a certificate of authenticity, one of 5 potential trading cards, sealed inside a poly bag emblazoned with 4 separate limited edition notices, and there was a hand-signed limited variant of each edition, containing only Rob's signature, this writer believes. This adds up for a total of 10 potential collector's editions, which led it to astronomical sales. So when we talk about this, and when we talk about X-Men number 1 and the massive fucking sales that they've, you know, dominated with in this era, we're not talking about the same exact version of the issue being bought a bunch of times. We're talking about they cheated. In effect, they cheated. You know, I'm not saying that they don't deserve the fucking praise. They do. They sold, you know, whatever reason they did, they sold. Right. He's good at marketing, which isn't nothing. So if Claremont Lee's X-Men number 1 hadn't come out, it's possible that X-Force number 1 would have been the comic of the decade. This book was peak Liefeld, which means we can only go down from here. Artwork. The rest of Liefeld's X-Force series is not aged well. Let's look at this one real quick. You know what? We'll look at more high definition stuff, high resolution stuff here in a bit. But that's not to say that there isn't some nostalgic fun to be had. There are some fantastic lessons to be learned from it. But unless you're a certain age when it came out, or you're a comics historian, I'm not sure it has anything to offer. You know, at first glance, this isn't awful. It's just that what the fuck is going on in the background? Like the more sophisticated of a comic book reader you are, the more awful it looks. You know, when I was a kid, this looked fucking awesome because I didn't know shit. You know what I mean? And now I look at it and I just see the background and I see the hand where the fingers are just successively smaller, like shorter. That's not how hands work. You know, I see the cross hatching in completely bonkers places. Like this is supposed to represent kind of some kind of texture or shading, and yet there's no consistency whatsoever. Like, where the fuck is the light source, man? This is the first thing I took drawing lessons at my local comic shop. The owner of my my local comic shop as a kid, his wife was a very, very good artist, penciler, painter. I think she sculpted too. And like one of, if not the first lesson that we got from her when I took drawing lessons was light source. And to always keep your light source in mind. Sometimes you can even draw a light source, you know, just for reference in the corner of your paper if you need to, so that you can, you know, if and I'm not talking about your literal light source, but like in the drawing itself, where is the lighting coming from in that drawing, in that world that you're creating, right? That character you're creating, how is he lit? Where the fuck is the light coming from in this? You know what I mean? It makes no fucking sense. As Rob takes on more duties, covers for other books, plotting his own, he starts to get both lazy and overly indulgent. His focus shifts purely to his strengths: character design, texturing, cross-hatching, dynamic poses. The first thing this does is make his work impossible to ink or color. When this happens, it draws his baffling posing anatomy into starker relief, particularly as the first became a parody and the second a distant afterthought. All of this means that Rob was doubling and tripling down on the only things that work. And that's how you get women who are footless and 13 heads high. That's how every cover begins to feature Cable with biceps like boulders and a chest the size of a steakhouse. Writing. This is where I'm most biased. Simply put, I have never ever liked Rob's writing. His visual storytelling, sure. His character designs, guilty. I was 12. But his writing? He's has none of the grit of Chuck Dixon or Frank Miller, nor the charm of Larry Hama, nor the dizzying scope of Jim Starlin. And yet Liefeld's work is constantly begging for comparison to these three, especially Miller and Hama's individual Wolverine runs. Instead, what you get is Cable, a character with flash and promise, but in Rob's hands is pure confusion and unmet potential. His utterly impenetrable backstory, with Executioner's song only made worse, the Days of Our Lives episode that was his relationship with Strife, the fact that Cable's entire characterization starts and stops with grunting and cybernetics. I can only assume that Rob's plotting process involved him screaming verbs at an action figure until the deadline came and went. At which point someone made Phoebe Nicieza stop crying long enough to give him something to give something to the letterer. Jesus Christ. The theory is supported by the fact that Deadpool, most people know, isn't the work of Liefeld at all. Writer Joe Kelly and artist Ed McGuinness were the ones that created the Merc with the Mouth version of Deadpool, who immediately and irrevocably replaced the humorless musclehead that Rob first fashioned. And it was Christopher Priest that locked in Kelly's humor and cemented Wade's constant breaking the fourth wall. These two, along with Rick Remender's Uncanny X-Force, are frequently held up as the definitive runs for fans. In my opinion, even Nicieza's 50-issue run on Deadpool and Cable holds up better than Liefeld's Cable and Deadpool. Co-founding Image Comics. Oh, we're just getting started, baby. Yeah, mic drop, pick it back up. Keep going. Let's keep going. As I said, 1991 was the height of Rob's stardom at Marvel. X-Force and the X-Men had caused a tide that raised all mutant books, so while Rob's output was starting to show signs of trouble, his readership was only rising. And then Rob did the single dumbest thing in his life. He put out his ad for Malibu Comics. He put out this ad for Malibu Comics, followed shortly by this ad for Youngblood. After this, Rob was out at the big two. From the creator of the smash summer hit X-Force, the Executioners. Oh my God. Little Titans, Legion, X-Men? No way. Youngblood. So the dude was trying to compete with the companies he was already working for. All right. So this is the very beginning of what is happening now, where Rob Liefeld He wants to shit on companies that he wants to respect him and work with him. You can't take swipes, man. Like, you can't take swipes at him like this. He literally, I don't know what the fuck he was thinking. The entitlement on display is insane to me, and always has been. Jumping ship. Thankfully, Rob caught another rising tide. Image Comics. Joining up with the likes of Todd McFarlane, Jim Lee, and Eric Larson as co-founders of this new venture meant that Rob was at ground zero for a brand new revolution in the medium. And for the second time, Rob Liefeld helped change the way comics were made and sold. No matter what else I say, no matter what criticisms I have, this fact deserves recognition and respect from every single comics fan. The creator rights, improved coloring techniques, and increased production quality that he helped pioneer are essential to everything we know about modern comics. Unfortunately, it also meant that Rob Liefeld was now co-president with no editor above him. This meant that Rob was free to indulge his style to its fullest extent. And that meant ripping off the big two. Deadpool, specifically Rob Liefeld's version of Deadpool, is famously a copy of Deathstroke. Let's see what they got here. Oh, unavailable. All right. And since that worked out for Rob, it became a bit of a bad habit for him at Image with its relaxed approach to legal oversight. So, you know, he's swiping himself here. Now, the reason that you can get away with something like this is because it's an homage, right? It's a tribute. He's tributing himself. You know, like he's like, you know who I want to pay tribute to? That guy. What's that guy that used to draw New Mutants for a little while? Me. Some might call that lazy. Some might call that self-aggrandizing. Rob created teams like New Men, Bloodstrike, Youngblood, and Brigade, which are just 4 of his attempts to rip off the X-Men. The first of which resulted in legal action. The last 2 we'll see again later. Each of those teams were comprised of various characters who were themselves swipes, including Fighting American, Captain America, Deadlock, Wolverine but with Faust's clothing, Troll, Tiny Beast with Wolverine's haircut, Roman, straight up Namor, Seahawk, Wolverine and Namor but with a dumb Strife helmet, Warwolf, Sabretooth on Laundry Day, Sentinel, War Machine plus Iron Man, looks more like Cable plus Bishop, Cabot, Deadpool and Cable, Smash, Hulk painted purple, Supreme, a boring Superman analog, more on him later. This is not the greatest character in the world, no. This is just a tribute. Couldn't remember the greatest character in the world. This is just a tribute to the greatest character in the world. All right. Sorry. Looking at that list, we're reminded of another peculiarity of Rob's. We often discuss Rob's art foibles, but for my money, his naming of things is where he really broke comics. Broke comics. I want you to look at these 3 covers and imagine you don't know the heroes. Okay, so we're going to look at these 3 covers and imagine you don't know who the characters are. You're seeing this for the first time. Captain America, Wolverine, Punisher. Okay. What information can you glean from their titles and motifs? Now, go in cold on these 3 number 1 issues and try to do the same. Battlestone. Okay. Prophet. War Child. Do you see what the difference is here? You can't tell me anything about the characterization of these guys whatsoever. Tell me, what do any of these people do? I ask this because only one of them is from the future and one from Arthurian times, and you'd think you could tell which was which. Of course, Rob's awful appellatives weren't born at Image. At Marvel, he created characters like Genesis, Fantasia, and Shatterstar, none of whom were properly described by their call signs. I mean, that's true. Like, has Shatterstar ever actually shattered a star? I don't think so. And yet somehow it feels so much more tired at Image. I mean, why the hell is Night Saber named after a sword that knights did not use? And why is the weapon a light-up staff? Why isn't he in armor? I know that seems like a small thing to harp on, but how did Rob Liefeld, perhaps the greatest comic marketer since Stan Lee, miss the remedial chapter in comics? How would I, as a comic fan, see a cover of Prophet and distinguish him from any of the other characters Rob churned out that month? The official, so this is a post-Image. This is him being ousted from Image. The official story from Image top brass that in 1996, Rob Liefeld was about to be fired. Bro, deep cut. Love it. And they didn't fucking get the red cartridge Maximum Carnage either. So the official story from Image top brass is that in 96, Rob Liefeld was about to be fired. The exact reasons depend on the telling, but three main reasons come up again and again. According to the Image press release, Rob was fired, allegedly, for misusing his position as co-founder to promote a rival publisher that he himself created, as well as poach talent from the Image stables. Rumors before this, Silvestri left Image on account of Liefeld. If true, that means Liefeld would have pushed Silvestri into the open arms of Malibu, where Silvestri helped create Witchblade and the Darkness, two of Spawn's biggest sales competitors. Anonymous sources have described a pattern of verbal abuse from Liefeld. What? Couldn't be. One that simply made his contributions impossible. Regardless of reason, Rob allegedly resigned in the press while the meeting to fire him was taking place. He also announced he was launching his own imprint, Awesome Comics, because of course that's what he'd name it. Yeah, I mean, there's no claim that like 100% of all successful characters have a name that accurately describes exactly what they are or whatever, but Nightcrawler, at least in a spiritual sense, you can get the theme of what the character is about, at least in a thematic sense, right? Whereas, you know, the same thing with like the Darkness. You know, there's a thematic link that you can kind of see. I want you guys to somebody keep a tally of how many comic book imprints publishers he creates over the years and quickly die off. Okay, so looking at it one way, this imprint was a continuation of Liefeld's bad habits. Rob would put out more comics that were straight ripoffs of other properties, most notably his Agent America / Fighting American, who was such an obvious proxy that Marvel actually took him to court. There was a trial and everything. But on the other hand, being apparently booted from Image must have been a colossal blow to Liefeld because his art appears to change a bit for the better at this period. Sure, his characters might be ripoffs, but at least their proportions were getting closer to normal, and Rob actually attempted to ground them sometimes. But maybe the most impressive thing was how Awesome Comics kick-started the careers of people like Jeff Loeb, Jeff Matsuda, and Ian Churchill, and more. Most critically, however, was how Rob learned to let other people play with his toys. Alan Moore's Supreme. Rob created Supreme at Image, turning it into a pretty bog-standard Superman. It ran for a few dozen issues before Rob took it over to Awesome Comics and went for a few dozen more before having a moment of clarity and asking Alan Moore to take over. And to everyone's surprise, Moore did. Starting with number 41, Moore was permitted to completely reinvent the character. His Supreme was filled with comics history, delightful cliche, and a palpable love for the original Superman inspiration. Moore has gone on record saying this book was an apology for his previously dark and cynical works. When the book is good, it feels like that. And then Rob ruined it. Rob takes his toys, goes home. Moore left the book while it was still receiving shocked acclaim. Rob held up the release of his final scripts while working with Eric Larson, another infamous image creator with a problematic past. I don't know about that. Literally don't know about that. Not that I'm saying I doubt it. To reboot the book in the worst way possible. The two scripted out a new series that had the real Supreme, the pre-Moore Liefeld only version, return and literally blow up everything Moore had made. Not only was the progress destroyed, so was the tone of the book. It ran only 4 issues before collapsing. Such a waste. Return to Marvel. Oh god, this is one of my favorite quote-unquote Liefeld works here. Let's look at this shit. Look at that fucking curved... Liefeld is just... does curved guns, but that's not even the start of it. Look how small the head is. Look how giant the arms are. Look how giant the hands are. It's fucking insane. This is insanity, man. It's a goddamn insane fucking drawing. His post-2015 wave of popularity, Deadpool's post-2015 wave of popularity, brought Rob back into Marvel's good graces. Suddenly there was a concerted push to get Rob back on these characters he created with titles like Cable and Deadpool Corps. To his credit, Rob put out his best work in decades. Gone was the abundance of hatch lines. Gone was the profusion of pouches, bandoliers, and pads. Even the anatomy was getting better. Rob even made a real point of grounding his characters on their own 2 feet. There were still insane guns and an apparent buy one get 12 free sale on bladed objects, but it never got out of hand. And when Rob was swiping, he was mostly swiping from himself. This was a mature Rob Liefeld. But his big contribution was going to be a brand new character in the X books. Everybody knows about Major X, right? There are 2 things Rob Liefeld cannot leave alone in this world: time travel and the Summers family. Major X was supposed to be a brand new addition to Cable's Ascaniverse, the one where Apocalypse's vision of the future has come to pass. I get the feeling it was also Rob's attempt to make good on Executioner's Song. Instead, we got a Rob Liefeld's worst hits, a Cable-centric story involving a convoluted time travel, vague missions/prophecies, grim anti-heroes, unhelpful names, grimacing faces. The covers are dramatic backslide from Liefeld's work on Cable and Deadpool. Having read all 6 issues of this miniseries, all I can tell you is who is related to whom and what everyone looked like. I can't name a single power that Major X has. I don't even know if he has powers. And after several minutes of Googling, I'm not sure anyone else does either. Kickstarter, social media, and our terrible modern world. As of 2019, Rob Liefeld finds himself a man with very few comrades. He has spent the last 2 decades picking pointless fights, has gotten into it with old friends, Louise Simonson. Let's see what that's about. Well, we'll go ahead and go here. Baby Niciesa and Jeff Loeb. He subtweeted Scott Snyder for his Batman sales success. He's fought with the New York Times, Newsarama, and Bleeding Cool, all of which are too dumb to link. Rob has made a spectacular freak out at DC. He quit Twitter a couple of times and then rejoined just to yell at his fans. And God, is there any comic creator going who is worse to their fans? Rob took $35,000 from a Kickstarter and nearly $6,000 more from a separate Indiegogo in order to produce a Brigade book. He goes back on his promise to include an IP that he created, Youngblood, in the book because he pissed off the co-creators. And just now, 6 years to the month, the compromised result is supposedly going to print for a total, I believe, of 500 units. I'm at a loss for why this is happening, continues to happen, or why this man seemingly cannot endure anything other than unalloyed worship. So I say this with sincerity. We can only surmise that there is no one in Rob Liefeld's life that can prevent him from being exploitative of his friends, his fans, or himself. Because if there were, this would have stopped. So let's look and see. So this is Peter David saying, anyone who so diligently, so I come not to bury Rob, but to praise him. Anyone who so diligently lives his life by the credo of giving credit where credit is due most certainly have his request honored to the maximum ability that this column and its crack research team can muster. Since Rob expressed his gratitude to me for bringing up the matter of cable's origins, thereby providing him an opportunity to pick Louise Simonson, one of the sweetest and most talented women in the industry, as a profit-hungry, acclaim-grubbing leech, I feel it only fair to continue my Rob-sanctioned efforts to spread credit around. Certainly Rob himself is liberal enough. The gent dispenses more credit than Citibank. For example, in an interview conducted by Paul Grant, blah, 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 due out in October, blah, blah, I don't know what that's all about, but Rob doles out the appropriate credit for the creative debacle called Youngblood 1. Youngblood number 1 was a disaster, period. End of story. Put it behind me. It will always exist, but disaster. I worked with a friend who I let go after that, who scripted the book, and when we reprint the first 4 issues, or 0 through 4, the whole probably will be rescripted and people will see how a different script on top of it. I did not write that. People, I was doing on that what I did on X-Force. I plotted it, and Fabian Nucius would come in and script on me on X-Force. I plotted Youngblood number 1, and I wanted 2 stories on each side. Little things like to be continued. Didn't get stamped down into the right places. So yeah, Youngblood number had such an abysmal launch because of Rob's own Rob's own input there. And yet he gives credit for the pure lousiness of Youngblood to his friend Hank Canals. In the world of Rob Liefeld, the writer exists to clean up after his mess. The writer as scapegoat, to be blamed when things crash and burn, and to be ignored or even vilified when things go well. To serve the convenience and whims of Rob Liefeld, master of credit. He seems truly flummoxed that Canals was not able to do for him what Nicieza did for him, namely make him look good. Turn the you-know-what to Shinola. After all, aren't we all writers interchangeable? All eminently equal and likewise disposable? So yeah, this is this Peter David just absolutely demolishing Rob Liefeld. Okay. What is this? This oh man. Fuck you. What? All right, we're not doing that. So here's a tweet from 2019. When I originally called Jeff Loeb, can you guys see this at all? When I originally called Jeff Loeb offering him dialogue script for my Captain America story, he said sarcastically, "Sure, what do you have, like 5 pages?" I said, "I have 50 pages I've written, drawn, and inked." And I had them messengered to Jeff, and he called. I had no idea. Apparently, there's more to this. I can't I'm not going to search for the second part of this. I don't know. So he was responding to Scott Snyder saying that it's not you, it never has been, it's Batman, in response to the sales of Scott Snyder's Batman run, which is just fucking insane. It's just insane that he's legitimately going out of his way to shit on a guy for success. Okay? Oh, God. He's just so fucking into himself, man. It's so stupid. Superstar artist and Kanye West of comics. Oh my God, that's true. He's the Kanye West of comics. He really is. Has taken to Twitter with a message for all his haters. Remember when you tried to faux shame me? I drew this. I drew cap tits. How did we come to this? So he basically was arguing with some teenagers. Right? Yeah, exactly. Tom King came along and very kindly proved that it was actually Scott Snyder. And I have one more thing that I've got that I remember I put together. I just want to make sure I pull this up. Specifically regarding the MCU, because that's what we're talking about here, right? Is he feels slighted by Kevin Feige and the MCU. But let's take a look at some things that Rob has said publicly about the MCU in particular. You know, I don't know. Here's what people don't want to hear. These are all tweets, I believe. But thank God I'm a realist. I feel like Deadpool, the movies, they've set sail. This is prior to Wolverine 9. Deadpool and Wolverine. We got 2 brilliant movies, and we live in a culture that always looks forward because all they're ever selling us is next. Yeah, you like that? Here's next. You like that? Here's next. I've told my kids, it's the fever. It's the fever. For me, as the fever calms down, people just need to chill out and realize that Deadpool 1 and 2 were released within 2 years of each other, 2016 and 2018, and I just can't. I'm not really that crazy about Marvel's plan right now. Liefeld continued questioning Kevin Feige's current plans for the MCU, which includes Black Widow, Eternals, and Shang-Chi, characters that arguably aren't that popular and are not as popular as Deadpool. It's the first time I go, hey, Feige, did you even have a plan? Your plan was Eternals and Shang-Chi? That was your plan? And Black Widow? So they close the door. Chris Evans says goodbye. Robert Downey Jr. says goodbye. Black Widow falls off a cliff, says goodbye. They almost lose Tom Holland to Sony. But you're a genius. But Marvel, you're a genius. Okay, I think I like the Deadpool films. I can't. Rob Liefeld added he's not excited about Deadpool at Marvel. Look, if they start making Deadpool today, it would come out in 4 years. I can't be excited about that. I think that is the answer to the question. I can't gloss it up and go, oh yeah, gee, golly. You know what they have planned for Deadpool right now? They got goose egg. Zero. So enjoy the movies. Do what I do. I set myself up for all the haters. I'm living in the past, man. I'm just living in the past. Shows pictures of Hugh Jackman mashed up as Wolverine Deadpool. When it was questioned if Liefeld actually knew anything about plans for Deadpool movies, he shot the trolls down. You wish. He tweeted back at one of Feige's zombies. And now this is from like a Chud website, obviously. And Liefeld also insinuated in another tweet that he knew everything that was going on with the movies. No, don't give anything but the most phony fake answers. Say everything is rainbows or else, tweeted Liefeld with a laugh. I literally do not care if there is another Deadpool film. I literally do not care if there is another Deadpool film. Watch the video. Content with 2 perfect films. My point is, it's not the creative branch holding it up. It's the executive branch, tweeted Liefeld. So this is a guy that is, basically, man, he's mad at the concept of time progressing without the appreciation that he once had in the industry also continuing with it. Right? Now let's conclude this article, because this is where it really gets good, man. The ending is fucking banger. Oh wait, I think I had one more thing here. Tom Brevoort is kind of a big dick, at Marvel. If you're not familiar. Tom Brevoort, he carries some weight. So Tom Brevoort, after that Twitter flame out, I can't say I'd be in a hurry to get onto that train. Tom tweeted a few more comments backing the DC Comics editor that Liefeld had problems working with. Someone told me that loser fat ass Brevoort was talking trash about me today. I dropped him a while back. I got to coach football games. Out. Sorry that they passed you over for EIC, Tommy B. Get over it and get back to mixing and matching Avengers and X-Men, doucher. I know, Tommy B. Why don't you all tell Kirkman how concerned you are for his future post-Marvel? That's our funniest bit that we howl at. Give me 1 second here. Let's see. Tom Brevoort says, you remain a sweetheart, Rob. Don't go changing. Also, feel free to say any of this to my face, you feckless bully. Takes a big man to go postal publicly on a young editor like that. Kicks puppies too. Happy to Tom Brevoort, then you can bump me with your gut. Happy to. That was what he said. Then you can bump me with your gut. And FYI, I don't drink. Haven't touched liquor in 30 years. Well, I mean, liquor would be an excuse for it. You know what I mean? Like, this is the kind of shit that fucking drunk people do. Or entitled fucking children. All right, now we're going to finish this sucker off. Here's the end. Conclusion. I said at the start of this that I would keep my jokes to a minimum because this wasn't the treatment that Rob Liefeld deserved. And that's true. He does not. Ultimately, it does not matter that Rob doesn't know anything about torsion or that he couldn't find a second act to save his soul. These facts have not hurt this world or Rob Liefeld one bit. What matters is that every day, at every turn, Rob Liefeld goes out of his way to be a cruel, petty, self-aggrandizing nightmare. He treats his collaborators with contempt, his fans with derision, his whole industry with scorn. At the slightest provocation, Rob is seemingly prepared to ruin his entire career. I told you that Rob Liefeld doesn't deserve humor. This is because humor only distracts from the problem. Mocking his love of pouches or shoulder pads would only lessen the questions we're all left with. 1. Rob Liefeld is a marketing genius, whose name alone will sell any book he's on. So why can't he give himself away? 2. Rob Liefeld has squandered talent, friendship, and goodwill at every opportunity. So why does he still have a fan base? Ultimately, there are 2 Rob Liefelds. One is the genius, the rainmaker, the man of the every hour. A 51-year-old now, I guess 57-year-old millionaire who has redefined the very medium he works in. The other is a selfish, wounded friend to no one. A vindictive child, fired from or bankrupted every publisher he's been a part of for 30 years. Every last one. There are 2 Rob Liefelds, and I fear the one who wins is the one we feed more.